Omni Sport Breakfast with MKT and Kevin McCollum.
We're now joined by Farai Razano, who's a sports and entertainment lawyer. Farai has been a prosecutor for the Boxing South Africa and South African Institute of Drug-Free Sport. He is also actively involved in the South African football landscape as a legal practitioner. SAFA president, and this is the major story here, SAFA president Danny Jordaan has been arrested and charged with fraud after allegedly spending 1.3 million rand of SAFA's money for his personal benefit without the consent of the board. Farai, let's start with Danny Jordaan and what he is actually being accused of. We have to ask, how serious are these allegations? Number one, what is he being accused of and how serious are these allegations?
Good morning, MKT, and good morning to the listeners, and thank you for having me. It's always good to wake up early in the morning. So thank you for having me. Look, and I must start by saying, look, whatever we say is obviously based on respecting Dr. Jordaan's rights, that he is presumed innocent until proven guilty by a court of law. And what we know from the public domain and from his court appearance yesterday is that he is facing 3 counts of fraud, 3 counts of theft, and conspiracy to commit fraud and theft involving some 1.3 million rand. So in summary, those are the charges. And then there's obviously a story behind the charges, but those are the charges.
Wow. And I mean, to those of us who aren't legalese, is how serious are those charges? I mean, to me, it literally sounds like Latin. Are we talking like about as serious as you can get for an administrator, or where are we in terms of the scale of seriousness?
Well, look, it's obviously not murder, which probably would be at the highest scale. But from an administrator's point of view, these are very serious charges. And in fact, they go to the core of your ability or your reputation as a person involved in administration. And what's worse here is that the fraud involves and theft involves the organization that Dr. Jordaan and Mr. Hluyo lead, in the sense that he is the president and Mr. Gronie is the CFO. So this relates to defrauding the South African Football Association or stealing from the South African Football Association. So it's as serious as they get. And in this case, it's not only a single count of fraud, it's 3 of them. And then there is conspiracy to commit fraud, which can then affect the sentencing if the gentlemen are found guilty of these charges. So you looking at a leader who's accused, or a shepherd who's accused of basically killing and eating the sheep that is supposed to be taken care of. So that can be serious from a criminal law point of view and from a reputational damage point of view.
Kev, what you got for Mr. Razano there?
So I was just looking up, and in terms of jail time, I'm not presuming anything, like you said, not guilty until proven so. Sorry, not guilty until proven so. But the minimum for any fraud over 500,000 rand is 15 years imprisonment. That's the minimum sentence. I mean, is that? Am I correct there?
Yeah, so it depends. I think where it's only an individual, it might move from the 15 years to go down. Okay. But where there is conspiracy, and it's not by mistake that the state has added this charge of conspiracy to commit fraud, because that ranges as an aggravating factor. So the gentleman, if found guilty, they possibly could face a 15-year jail term. And what's worse here is it's not a single count. There are 3 counts. And those are things that would be taken into account by a court when considering sentencing. It's not, okay, well, I just took a wrong turn. I didn't realize you can't turn left here.
Oops.
Here you have turned left 3 times and you have to explain what happened there. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, that leads me to question something else. If you're just joining us, Farai Razano, who's a sports and entertainment lawyer, one of the leading ones in South Africa, and of course, he's also deeply, deeply involved in working in the global landscape as well. He does pro bono work for FIFA and across the globe, so he has a great understanding of the legal procedures around the world, how that works. My interest becomes now, would we be talking about a man once struck off here? Do we get into sort of delinquency of admin as well here? Does he become one of those who what was our SAA? Was it Naledi Pandor? I forget what the lady's name was who ran SAA into the ground. Who was
that was Miss
Dudumieni. She was a delinquent administrator. Are we going down that road? Should they be found guilty? Again, they are innocent until proven guilty. But if found guilty, do we get to that sort of level?
Well, it should lead to that, even though this is a different scenario to Ms. Dudumieni's, because hers was based actually on the Companies Act, whereas here, in any organization, one of the things that are considered whether someone is fit to lead is issues like criminal record and any offenses that they could have committed in the past. So if the gentlemen are convicted and they have a fraud conviction, fraud and theft, certainly in my books, they wouldn't qualify to lead any organization. And I know SAFA has an ethics code, and one of the things it considered is this issue of criminal records. So it may be putting the cart before the horse, because these processes take long. But if it gets to that, it certainly would render Dr. Jordaan ineligible or an inappropriate candidate to lead such an organization. But what we need to emphasize again is that he is innocent until proven guilty, and that could take some time.
And he certainly believes he's innocent, because something that was interesting to me reading some of the articles yesterday was, and I don't know whether this is important or not, but I thought I would ask, is following that failed arrest interdict that he tried to sort of press ahead with, Dr. Jordaan said he did not hand himself in. The police came to fetch him at his house. In a legal standing, does that actually matter, or is that just, are we just now getting into the long grass?
Yeah, well, that's inconsequential, really, because in fact, what people would normally do is to arrange and hand yourself over. It shows that you are cooperating with the authorities. When you apply for bail, those are things you set out and say, look, I'm not running away. In fact, I came here voluntarily. If I was trying to run away, I would have run away. So it may be some form of defiance to say, well, look, I'm going to show that I've done nothing wrong here. Why should I hand myself over? But the result is the same. You have to appear before a court. Remember, there are many ways of appearing before a court. One of them is you could be summoned to appear before a court. So they would send the summons, say, come to court on this day. Or the most drastic one is this arrest thing where the officers of the law come and arrest you, detained for whatever period you appear before a court. So it doesn't make much difference, except that maybe in the accused's view, it may just be an act to show that, look, I do not believe I'm guilty. Why should I even be handing myself over? If anyone wants, they must come and fetch me here. But at the end of the day, you still have to appear before a court and deal with issues like bail and so forth.
And so earlier you spoke about these things take a while. How long should because I think it is in the public's interest to know, football isn't just something that just happens over there. Here, I would say it's as important as anything and as part of the economy as anything in South Africa. Is generally, in your experience, and of course, this is not how long this is going to take, but you said this can take a while. How long should the public expect this to take as it rolls out?
Well, it's as good as asking me how long is a piece of string. It depends with how the parties, especially the prosecution and the defense, conduct this. There could be technical issues that arise along the way, and they fight each other and so forth, and until at such a time the matter goes to trial. And in this case, it's important to note that just one step back, you remember, if the listeners and recall, this all not started, but when it really came into the public domain, there was that warrant of search and seizure that was executed sometime in March, and there was a big story about it. No, this is frivolous and so forth, political victimization and so forth. And subsequent to that, as I understand it, there was an application or a review application that is currently before court to declare that unlawful. So we may get into a space where this, despite this arrest and bail, court appearance and bail, they may want to then now say, well, look, this matter must be postponed pending that application, because if the court agrees with the accused persons in that application, then the whole thing falls away. But if it doesn't, then they proceed. So you're already looking at one step that could delay just this. The next appearance has been already set to 5 December, but that might be postponed sine die or without a date to try and finalize the first one that relates to the search and seizure warrant. Then after that, there would be all sorts of standard procedures of then exchanging the contents of the dockets and all that, pre-trial and so forth, until the matter actually gets to trial. And add other unplanned things, people get sick and all that. Before you know it, we are now in 2026 and we are heading towards 2027.
Yeah.
So they do take time.
And sorry, in the meantime, Danny Jordaan will be able to conduct himself as the president. I just want to finish this matter off. Is he will be able to continue his duties because, as you said, he's innocent until proven guilty, or not?
Yeah, so we need to separate the two, and thanks for that question, because what we're discussing is the criminal matter. So we need to separate the two. The SAFA would have then to, especially the executive committee or even the council would then have to sit and look at their prescripts and say, what do they say? I'll be honest, I haven't looked at that issue. It's not akin to a step aside in some political party policies, that sort of thing. But they would have to look at that and whether he continues unabated despite these charges, or they might then say, well, look, this especially involves the fraud and theft, involves SAFA. They may want to then take a special resolution if provided for in their prescripts that maybe takes a leave of absence. But as it stands, this is just the criminal process. He hasn't been suspended or placed on any leave by SAFA, and he remains the SAFA president. And in fact, I think one of the bail conditions was that he managed to retain his passport because he has to continue fulfilling his duties as an official of SAFA, compared to the other two gentlemen who had to hand over their traveling documents. His has got a special condition that he retains this passport because he must be able to conduct his duties. So as it stands, he's not in any way suspended by SAFA unless if it happens since we started this call, but he continues to serve as the SAFA president.
Mr. Razano, I've got a hard out in 30 seconds. Are you able to stay with us a little bit more? Because Kev's got some questions for you. Kevin's a real journalist, unlike me. He's got the real questions to ask you. I just asked the ones like a football fan. Are you able to stay with us for another 10 minutes?
Yeah,
do you have time for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Let's try.
All right.
10 minutes max, you said, eh?
Yeah, 10 minutes max.
We woke you up early. Let's keep you up a little bit longer.
All right, so 10 minutes absolutely max. Incredible stuff. This is a breakdown with Mr. Farai Razano, sports and entertainment lawyer, about the matter with Danny Jordaan and exactly how we can see this playing out. My takeaway there is the public has to be patient with this case, because there are many factors that will still be in the lead up to the judgment. Remember, he is innocent until proven guilty. Should he be found guilty, that is a long way down the road, and we need to be very clear that the public must be patient, even though this is a matter of interest. Danny Jordaan, as things stand, according to Mr. Razano, is able to conduct himself as the SAFA president unless the board has a special interdict that comes in there. All right, we'll be back in 60 seconds. We've got a few more questions for Mr. Razano. He's got a hard 10-minute out, and then we will let him go.
Omni Sport Breakfast with MKT and Kevin McCallum.
All right, we continue our chat with Mr. Farai Razano, sports entertainment lawyer, regarding Danny Jordaan's case, where he has been arrested for allegedly spending 1.3 million rands worth of SAFA's money without the appropriate action being taken. Kev, go ahead.
Yeah, Danny Jordaan, as everyone keeps forgetting, is not the only one accused in this matter. And so there's the CFO from SAFA, Gronie, Hluyo, and Trevor Neethling, who's a former journalist turned PR. Neethling has claimed that he's collateral damage in this. There's just infighting going on between the two factions in SAFA. But I mean, so how do they fit in? How do Hluyo and Neethling fit into this whole picture? What is their role in the the alleged allegations?
Okay, so Mr. Hluyo is the guy that manages the cash pot. He is the CFO. So any money that goes out, he should know. At least if proper procedures are followed, he should know. And from what we've gathered that is in the public domain is that Dr. Jordaan would have requested this cash and Mr. Hluyo agreed to release it or signed it off, despite that not having been signed off by, I think the standard procedure is Mr. Hluyo as the CFO and the CEO are supposed to sign off these transactions. But in this case, it was simply done between Dr. Jordaan and Mr. Hluyo. That's where he comes in. Whether there was any benefit for Mr. Hluyo or not, I think we don't know, and I think it's immaterial at this stage, but that's how he comes in.
Wow, absolutely incredible. And for Mr. Neethling, he as he says, he's just collateral damage, a victim of circumstance, which
Just
is
a service provider.
which is sad.
Yeah. Well, but and this is not to cast any aspersions on Mr. Neethling, but I think there's also a context that's important there because, as I understand it, from what has been reported, Mr. Neethling's company was engaged to provide PR, and this relates to the allegations against Dr. Jordaan by Miss Jennifer Ferguson, I think in 2018 or so.
2017 it was, yeah.
Is this 2017? Yeah. So that's where instead of Dr. Jordaan dealing with that as a personal matter, and these are the allegations, it's not fact. Mr. Neethling's company was engaged to provide that PR for him in his personal capacity, and those transactions or that transaction, again, it's alleged that was not approved by SAFA or did not follow the proper channels. So it's understandable that Mr. Neethling would say, well, but I'm just an outsider. I was appointed. I rendered the service. How should I know what was happening internally? I'm there to render a service. That's what I did. But those are the allegations around how Mr. Neethling comes into the picture.
Fair enough. And you know what, Farai, thanks so much for your time and giving us extra time. I want to, before I let you go, I've got one last question. I guess for us on the outside, there is two types of interests. You know, there's we want justice to be done because as South Africans, we're sick and tired of seeing, and I think global citizens largely are tired of seeing rich and powerful get away with things that the average citizen can't. I think there's that at play, and this is just my view on it. But the other side is that football is at the heart of South Africa, and not all of us understand corporate executive law like people like yourselves would understand it. I guess we would want to know, okay, however this goes, he is innocent until proven guilty. Moving forward, how could this be prevented in the future of SAFA making maybe better rules or better regulations? Could that be a way to prevent this? Or how could we prevent the cronyism that is being accused here? Of course, he hasn't, he's being alleged of having done, but how can we prevent cronyism happening in the future? Is that better regulation, or how might we do that?
So I will speak generally here because, as we said, Dr. Jordaan, Mr. Hluyo, and Mr. Neethling are innocent until proven guilty. But generally, in my experience, especially with sports governing bodies or regulation bodies, is half the time there are policies or procedures regulating these sort of matters, and especially finance, because for many years, a lot of these SGBs have adopted the King principles of good governance, there's accountability and so forth. But the issue becomes really the implementation of some of these processes or some of these rules. I can say without doubt that SAFA definitely has different committees that deal with different issues, and there would be one that deals with finances and so forth. But it boils down to an issue of implementation of these procedures. So half the time they are not really followed to the T in most sports governing bodies, not because they are not there. And when one raises questions, they will probably show you that, no, look, but our rules and our governance documents show that this is what we do, or albeit half the time it's not followed. So Yes, there are still outlying cases where there are no checks and balances, but in most of them, there are checks and balances that are just not implemented, and that results in this sort of allegations or sort of matters.
Okay, so perhaps better advice to these gentlemen and ladies moving forward from people who understand exactly what you have to do to execute the law to its T, and procedurally moving forward would avoid this kind of thing. So somebody like yourself coming into advice to say, hey, this is how you have to do it, and some checks and balances with somebody like yourself, or indeed a legal mind in the room to go, you are now transgressing these laws. This is how you would have to do things. That would be the way to move forward, to have better advice in the room at the time when you execute these things.
Yeah, kind of. Look, I'm not trying to punt cricket as the best model, but if you look at the CSA, their board it went through some transformation over the years, particularly in the most recent years, where they now have different types of board members. There are those that are independents, and there are those that are elected, and so forth. And those things help to strengthen the checks and balances in these organizations. But like I said, half the time the rule is there on paper. It's just a matter of implementation and ensuring that the watchdogs within those organizations are doing their job.
Got you. You know, Mr. Razano, I was hoping you were going to say in 3 months we'll have a result. We'll all be out of here before Jesus celebrates his birthday. It'll be all good. But as you said, you've given us the reality. Innocent until proven guilty, I think, is what we must all take away from this. And the other part for me is this will take time. The public must be patient. For Mr. Farai Razano, an incredible, he's a good runner, this guy as well. Big time runner. How many marathons now?
Well, good runner, I'm not sure, but runs a lot, maybe explains it. I just did my 117th marathon at the Sunny Pass there.
And you're 41 now, hey? 40?
Yeah.
Sunny Pass in Lesotho?
Yeah. Yes.
That is impressive.
Yeah, that's
117.
Let's not turn this into running marathons, but Sunny is impressive, and I'm really proud.
117. Listen, this South Africa has its own marathon to run with this case, and you run your marathons. Where can people get a hold of you? Should they be interested in using your services, or just getting in touch for their boards and all of the great work you're capable of doing for them?
Thank you for that, MKT. I think the easiest place is to check on our website, www.razanolaw.co.za, and you'll get all the other information and whether we offer services that are relevant to you or not.
Razano Law is RAZANOLAW, and
Yes.
they can find you there. I appreciate your time this morning, sir. Thank you very much, and we'll chat soon.
As usual, thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Much appreciated to you, sir. Wow. Okay, so it'll take some time.
Well, it's already taken time. So if we think that back in 2020, Willie Muka, who was on the NEC and I think even pushed off, he laid criminal charges then. And the Hawks have took until 2023 to investigate them, took until this year to basically raid the offices, a 5-hour raid in which they took hard drives and witness IT and took stiffies and not stiffies. No, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a different hard drive. I don't know what's on your hard drive there, Kevin.
Well, they didn't take floppies either.
No, well,
stiffies and floppies are old.
To be clear, no stiffies, no floppies.
Okay, flash drives.
Yes.
Flash drives.
Yes.
God, I'm so old.
To be clear, but it's an interesting one. I mean, listen, when the Hawks tend to eventually make an arrest, I mean, that's awkward. Now it gets real because they tend to be doing their thing. But anyway, innocent until proven guilty, as Mr. Razano has said, and that is what it is. Interesting guy. They're a smart guy, that.
Absolutely. He outlined it in a way. He spoke to us like, he made it easy for me like I was a child.
Yeah.
So I could understand it.
Yeah. No, absolutely brilliant. Let's take some executive changes that are happening also around the world. Let's finish off with this quick. Big changes happening in World Rugby. Kev, what we got there?
So, I mean, rugby's been crying out for a change. Bill Beaumont, Sir Bill Beaumont, or Lord Bill Beaumont, or whatever the hell's name he calls himself these days. So he's retiring, and the election for the new chairman is taking place today. So we've got Australia's Brett Robinson up. He's favoured by the sort of old school guys. France's Abdellatif Benazi, and a great lock, 56 years old. He says rugby has to change. He says we've got to get rid of the old school. And then there's the last guy. He's an outside, Italy's Andrea Ronaldo. Now, Benazi is significant for South Africa because he's been nominated by France, but he's been seconded by South Africa. Whereas Robinson, who apparently is the favourite, has been nominated by Australia and seconded by England. And I'm going back to Augustin Pichot. You remember he lost to Bill Bowman by, 28 votes to 23 when he tried to stand for chairman. And he wanted to change. He said that world rugby is not global. Portugal against Fiji isn't global. You know, it just, you aren't spreading the sport. You're taking one direction. You're not taking a direction that shouldn't be taken. So for me, it's a vital thing for world rugby. I don't know if Robinson's the right person. I would like to see Benazi have a go. Although that would probably entrench France's domination of rugby at the moment.
Oh, not so bad for us.
Yeah.
France is like our home ground. We got 2 World Cups there. But I hear you, Kev. I think rugby is a very, very, very conservative sport. I don't know. I haven't been keeping an eye on it. I would be shocked if they went liberal. I think the Robinsons guy is going to win because, as you said brilliantly, there is Pichot lost because they don't want to change.
There's another white man in charge basically because Benazi was born in Morocco. It's an old boys club. Nothing much changes.
Well, but, hope springs eternal. So, Kev, really, really interesting. Thanks for that story. I mean, some breaking news. That's called journalism, by the way, if you're at home. That's Big J journalism from Kev there. And that's a really, really important thing. Of course, the Springboks, the greatest rugby nation of all time. I'm not saying that because I'm South African. I'm saying it because we got 4 William Webb Ellises in the cabinet, which is more than 3 if you're from New Zealand. Finish off on this question and answer of the day. Is who is the top try scorer for the Australian men's rugby team of all time?
David Campo Campese with 64 tries.
64 tries. Some winger, some player. He's become an interesting character after that, though. We'll leave it at that. Yeah. David Campese. All right, that is it for today's show. Join us tomorrow as we bring you the greatest of sport from Africa and around the world.
Listen live and on demand.
Welcome to Omni Sport.